Good morning. My name is Bill Saylor, and I've been asked to speak to you today about the power of sacrifice as it pertains to our Call Forward initiative. This wonderful building, our church home, is in need of some affection that can be provided through our generosity. To help put things in perspective, let me first give you some background information on me and my involvement in First Congregational Church. I've been around this faith community for a long time. My wife Sharon led me here in the late 1970s when she joined the church and I became the proverbial Easter and Christmas attendee, which I felt was a fair sacrifice of my time in those days. It wasn't until the mid-'80s when my daughter cleverly talked me into attending a men's retreat with, in her words, a really neat group of guys, that things changed considerably. So I sacrificed a weekend of what could have been used for career building, work, or likely a game or two of golf, and went on this retreat with a bunch of people I really didn't know. What was I thinking? Well, it turned out to be a much better experience than I'd envisioned. In fact, it was somewhat of a life-changing event for me. On that retreat, I found that I wasn't in the company of a group of wimps and Bible thumpers, as I suspected I might be, but rather in the midst of a group of successful, intelligent, introspective men who had good stories to tell and were actually enjoyable to hang around with. Also, these guys were heavily invested in First Congregational, and their discussions revealed their different areas of interest and levels of commitment. After hearing their conversations and thinking about what they had to say, I realized that I shared many of their beliefs about God and church and community, but had somehow put these feelings in the background since I was a child. I decided it was time to change my focus. I started regularly attending Sunday services and also joined the choir. I figured I had some musical talent, and this would be a nice way to get more involved and contribute something for the good of the church community. So I sacrificed one evening a week for choir rehearsal and, of course, had to be in the choir loft every Sunday. 1988 was a memorable year. January 14th, a fire started right behind me where some organ pipes were housed and a space heater was used to keep the humidity level low. The space heater malfunctioned and caused the fire, nearly destroying this sanctuary. It was a tragedy, but it was also an inspirational time as a congregation rallied and turned out in force to help clean up the mess. I can't imagine how many hours were sacrificed to help prepare this space for renovation. During the renovation, after being cleaned up itself, Pilgrim Hall became our place of worship. During this time, members were encouraged to stand up and give testimonials, much as I'm giving today, about what the church meant to them. Dozens of people gave impassioned speeches about how important this church was to their faith journeys. One testimonial stood out to me. It was given by a Jewish doctor who attended services here regularly with his wife and children who were members. He passionately described how much First Congregational had meant to his family and what a great loss it would be if First Congregational were to simply disappear from their lives. In listening to these testimonials and hearing members and friends describe how this church had aided and comforted them, educated and inspired them, and become such an integral part of their lives, for me, it put into perspective the importance of First Congregational Church of Glen, Ellyn as a faith community and to the community at large. It provided me the incentive to finally move forward and join the church, which I did in 1988. Now, getting back to the sacrifice theme, I was honored to be asked to join the Stephen Ministry leadership team in 1991, which I prayerfully considered and then accepted. Might be one of the best decisions I ever made. It was a 2-year commitment, which ended up being more like 4 years plus, but the rewards of working with so many wonderful people, the Stephen ministers, and knowing the difference they were making in the lives of anonymous care receivers more than made up for any sacrifice I had made. Yeah, I had to give up 2 weeks of vacation to train as a Stephen leader, and after returning from training most of my Monday evenings for the next several years. Small price to pay, even for a guy who loved Monday night football. Over the years, I've served on a number of committees, volunteer days, been involved with Bridge Communities, which originated here, co-chaired the men's retreat for a decade, co-chaired bringing in new sponsored hymnals and the racks to put them in, yada, yada, yada. All of these activities involve making a sacrifice of some sort. But I'd prefer to think of the time, talent, or treasure I've given to this church not as a sacrifice, but rather as an investment. An investment in a community of faith that has helped bring me much closer to God than I was in the 1980s. An investment that will continue the legacy of the over 5,000 members of the cloud of witnesses which are displayed above us. And to continue hearing the welcoming peal from the bell tower of that mighty bell for the ages that welcomes all to worship here and make this community of faith an important part of their life. Yesterday over breakfast, Sharon and I discussed our called forward pledge. And I was surprised that we so easily agreed upon a number that was 2 times what I was originally thinking. But then I thought of a comment I had heard years ago about donating to a worthwhile cause. Give until it feels good. And the number for the investment amount we arrived at felt good. Just how strongly does Sharon and I feel about our attachment to this church? Well, after we're gone, we really won't be. We'll be sitting comfortably in the columbarium in the narthex in the back. This is a wonderful place to further your spiritual journey. I hope for all of you that you may experience even a little of the joy and satisfaction that I have over the years from investing, call it sacrificing if you must, in the mission of this remarkable faith community. Thank you.